Okay, very good. All right. I see Irene. Okay. She's my loyal friend for BRS. Okay. Okay. I wanted to just oh super. So this and you need the one from last week. Also. Oh, you have it. Fine. Okay, this is no, but I'm still working on it. Yes, this one. So just keep this here. The reason I wanted to just review about Rabbi Yehoshua Heschel is because some of the Rabbanim, especially that second packet, which you just got today, they are disciples of his. So when you see his name, there's this like a reminder. And I did a little bit further research, just Google. So actually, I only have here C 1663. He actually passed away in 1663. I don't know where you want to see. You could see here. We're just going to. Okay. All right. So here, and then wait. I still need. I have some more graphics. Yeah, and we're just going to be finishing off this. Okay. So bear in mind that what the great influences on the past. So from Vilna, he also lived through all those terrible Cossack invasions. He's from Lublin, and they're also. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm doing that new one. Right. Let me go back to. So he's. What am I doing? I feel like I'm doing. So, where is that sheet that I was? Well, this is the one. Did I get anybody loose sheets? Those are the ones I usually work off of. I don't know what it is. So whatever. I'll just okay. Oh, yeah, because I put it down. Right. So I gave you that additional information. He was born 1595 and he died in 1663. All right. So we're doing the one that has Rabbi Yehoshua Heschel of Krakow. We're doing that one. So he learned under his father in Britain, then he went to Lublin, became a bit assistant to his father in Britain, and then when then later, 1654, he actually became the Rosh Hashanah, the chief rabbi of Lublin. He remained there to the year 1654, and then went to Krakow to 60s, when we learned about him, Rabbi Yom in Howard, great Rav. And he stayed there until he died. But he's known as the Rebbe, Reb Heschel. All right. He was a very beloved person. He was very kind, and very, held in great esteem. And because of those Cossack massacres, those 1648, 49, and later the Swedish invasion in 1656, and then he went to Vienna. I said for 2 years, but he's collecting funds there. That's why he goes to Austria. The Jews in Vienna fell in 1670, and it won't come back for 200 years. But right now they are still in Vienna, and obviously it was a somewhat prosperous community. He went to Nikolsburg, Moravia, and there we have mentioned Rabbi Menachem Mendel Krochmal, part of Europe. And held him in great respect. He said that very last paragraph, because I will seg you into what we're going to do later today. Rabbi Yehoshua Heschel's yeshiva was always filled to capacity, and many of the greatest scholars of the age were his disciples. Among them, we'll be learning about some of them. The Shach, I already mentioned the Shach. He's one of the prime commentators on the Shulchan Aruch. Yoredea. I believe he's also in one of the other Orachaim, right. There's Shmuel Chayvish, get Rabbi Gershon Ashkenazi, whatever. Okay, that's it. I just think this is interesting. Turn to page 2 in that package. This is many of his halakhic decisions are also quoted in the works of his contemporary sages, and well of those of later generations. So again, he's held in very high esteem, and when they're coming to a point of halacha and they want to elaborate upon it, they they would go back as far as his writings. All right. And even the notable Yehuda, who perhaps was on to election for patients, the notable the Yehuda. Okay, then we did the Taz. I had started the Taz. I don't think I finished it, so we'll just briefly go through the Taz. Then it's the Shach and the Taz. And in a few minutes, I'll have it with you. And in an actual copy of the Shulchan Aruch, where the Shach and the Taz, are the chief commentators. Or if you see it, you can show it. So I don't care. All right, so he said his grandfather was Rabbi Yosef Betzalel. We had told about him. He was the rabbi of Ludmir, which is in that part of Poland called Bohemia. He was look, even the Ramah, in the Maharshal, original Williams. His older brother, Rabbi Yisrael Halevi, was also a great scholar. And his brother, when he writes his work, he sometimes will cite his brother. Rashi does that once in a while, quote something that his father had said. Then he studied under the Bach. We had done him a little while ago, and he became his son-in-law. We see that happen quite frequently. When a particular Rav has a brilliant student, he goes, "Oh, good shit." All right, he then moved to Krakow when he was very poor. Then he went to some, I don't know how to pronounce it, it's in Eastern Galicia, so that's more southerly Poland. And then so when the Bach became the chief rabbi in Krakow, he went past through this town where his son-in-law was living. He was like appalled at the terrible, financial straits in which he found his son-in-law and his daughter. And then Rav Dov moved to moved to Posen, that's more western Poland, and then he served as sort of unofficial, recognized again his scholarship and turned to him for helping him interpreting the halacha, and he stayed there for more than 20 years. Then in 1643, he goes back to his native Bohemia and he's appointed the Rav of the town of Ostrov. The Maharshal had served there as Rav many years, several years, some years. Okay. There he headed the town's famous yeshiva and was soon recognized as one of the greatest rabbis of his time. Now we'll come to his work, the Taz. Obviously, that's not his name. Doesn't come, right? So what's the Taz? It's based on what he wrote, which happens often with a lot of these rabbanim. They're known more by their work, than they are by what their actual name is. His disciples and associates. Oh, so there's a famous yeshiva there. Okay, his disciples and associates important to write his Kiddushim on the tour. The tour, the Arba Torim, the first time that the halacha, was divided up into 4 major sections, and the Rabbi Yosef Karo wrote the Shulchan Aruch. He also used those same 4 categories to divide all of halacha. His rulings on matters are Rav David publishes Turei Zahav. Again, Turei means like rows of gold. On Yoredeya in Lublin in the year 1646. At the same time, his younger contemporary, this Rabbi Shapsai HaKohen, we've done him the Shach, okay? So from Shapsai Kohen, right? That's the Shach, was composing his competing commentary, which was called Sifsei Kohen, or the Shach is based on that Sifsei Kohen, where he lived in Krakow. Okay, up to page 3. Okay, so we've already discussed the Shach and Taz. So Rabbi Green wanted to talk to you again. Where's the basic? We have the text in the middle, the Mishnah, and the okay, that's how it was usually published. That's what we have. So the same thing we have Shulchan Aruch, okay, that was written and made Ramah, okay, Ramah following this. That's all right there in the middle. A small bit.
Then you're going to take the stop on one side, and the side.
So
And
then
then
it would be five feet and the stop.
so the second one is right. Then we rush and focus on the main common service. So you have to stop on the side as the main common service on the surface. Then the other market is the thing that got me add one. Also, it's an important common. Okay, but his brain becomes sort of one.
The more earlier. Higher up.
Anyone who studies okay, when they study Shulchan, they often will immediately require because they don't always, right? And often then some of the later, okay, refer back to this. So and so said, they needed this is real.
Okay, this is your one. Four steps. So I don't always have all of it. On a day, you. So there. You have to really know the top of the topic. So I can just kind of go right there. When it comes to some of the other tours, you know, other four sections, they are not always. Also, great conversation. It's not here. All right. Let's finish up with the time. All right. I'm in that last thing. So, the top of the shot is indispensable to any student of your and rabbinical ordination is based on the applicant's knowledge of them. There's a lot of laws there. I guess this is about kashrus, and this would have shechita in it, Rabbi Green. The laws of shechita. Right, yeah. Because I don't know if my son did this, but I remember my brother, he got sick. So they took him to an slaughterhouse, and he ate meat for a while after, you know, they like placed the animal up, you know, and then they slit the throat, and then they open up the animal. He said like the steam comes out. It's like really, you know, very. So anyway, so I don't know if my son did that. And I did go by the Empire plant, and because I, you know, I come from Harrisburg, and I lived actually in Harrisburg. So I went to my father. I'm not sure why he was going for some reason. So I didn't go inside, but you could see the conveyor belt with the chickens, you know, and then they, you know, and they cut their heads off. Did you ever take a course? You know, this was in my high school, my last year center. I mean, we're getting married eventually, so they taught us actually if you get a chicken direct from the shochet, you know, how can you check and get it kosher? So gross. We had to cut it open and ugh. So I never had to do that. But years ago, people did. You know, I told her, I remember a lady bringing a chicken to my father for Shiloh. She wanted to make sure it was kosher. She noticed something normal. People have normal. Whatever. What? Oh, of course, of course. Yes. Oh, you were? So you really know. Absolutely. Right. That's all the turkey. Oh, wow. That's so fascinating, actually. Um, and so whatever, Cuba was the way from everybody to learn bits and pieces, you know, of different things. Okay, so I say you have to study Yoredeya, and also there's another one that's studied quite a bit. It's also the Orach Chaim, and so he Vitaz also read a commentary there. But there it's the commentaries on and then together with the Shach and the Magen Avraham. But you see, the Magen Avraham is not so much on Yoredeya. He's going to be more on the Orach Chaim. All right. The commentaries of the other sections, those two other sections, were published when those parts of the Shulchan Aruch had already been provided with adequate commentary. So that's why the Shach, the Taz, and later the Magen Avraham, they don't devote themselves to writing commentaries. And those two parts of the Shulchan Aruch, there's enough interpretation already out there. It wasn't necessary. The first part of the commentary on the Kosher was published in Hamburg before 1692, and that was done by the Gaon Rav Tzvi Ashkenazi with his accompanying notes. And the second part was published years later in Berlin in 1761, and the work was printed even later by a descendant of the Taz. So they could have like looked through his notes, or obviously they were in handwritten form. They weren't published at that point until they tell you the year when it was published. Okay, so a distinguishing feature of Turei Zahav is that it goes into a lengthy explanation of the Torah's views. And remember, this was a thread you can see among certain Rabbanim, that if you don't base your knowledge of halacha just on the Shulchan Aruch, but go back to the more original source, which is the Torah. So he obviously did, analyzing the most subtle nuances of the code's Shulchan Aruch language. As a result, this work is regarded as a commentary to the Torah as well as to the Shulchan Aruch. Rav David names his work Turei Zahav to highlight its aspect as a Torah commentary. So just to review, so first we have the Torah, that way of organizing halacha into four main categories. Then Yosef Karo, being at that point in Tzfat, he first writes a Beit Yosef. I think he started writing it in Turkey, the Beit Yosef. But I guess it's a pretty lengthy work also. So then he wrote the Shulchan Aruch, which he felt was a shorter version, but again, based on those four turim, those four main categories. Let's see, he names his work Turei Zahav to highlight its, and I was using that word Torah, to highlight its aspect as a tool to come. This he stresses the obligation we have to defend and interpret the views of the earlier sages. However, when the object is to apply that are ruling on a particular halacha, this must be tempered with a genuine regard for the truth. So he said, even if you feel, no matter how brilliant or great an earlier scholar is, but if you feel that there's a greater truth, to the matter being discussed, you have the right, almost the obligation, to point out things that you think are wrong with that earlier interpretation. I mean, you would never disagree with them in Torah, like that. That they would never do. And the Gemara is also considered like sign for sign, but they themselves disagree with each other, when they're discussing halal. So he was writing. Consequently, sometimes the views of our elders must be disregarded in the final halacha. With typical modesty, he laments the fact that by necessity he has been forced into such a thing. Like he's not happy, that he's publicly writing, or just, having a discourse, and he's disagreeing with some earlier greats. But again, he uses, as his obligation that he has to, again, to come to the truth. The Taz is regarded as one of the greatest sages of his age. His rulings were readily accepted with great reverence by most of his contemporaries. By contrast, Robert Green pointed out, his rival, the Shach, was yet a relatively unknown young man, and it took time for him to be recognized. And he disagreed very often with the Taz's interpretation. A scant 20 years after the works of both men were published, it was found necessary to print both works side by side alongside the text of the Shulchan Aruch. That doesn't come out till 1677. So you would have had a Shulchan Aruch that was available, that was that's what 1500s, but now they're going to publish, and you see the format is very similar to a Gemara, with, so to speak, the main text that you're discussing in the center and the various Meforshim commentaries around it. They remain in this hallowed place right to this very day. Okay, now we're going on to another person. I looked him up, Google, right? But this Rabbi, I put a reference to, I think it was talking more about his son. I don't have his exact date, but he died in 1668. Rabbi Moshe was with the side of a very distinguished. He was a great grandson of the Ramah. So just to remind you, Rabbi Yosef Karo wrote the Shulchan Aruch, but its interpretation leans more heavily to the Sephardic tradition. So the Ramah then wrote the Ashkenazi version, and I told you it's printed. First would be the Rabbi Yosef Karo, Shulchan Aruch, and then right after you'll have the Ramah commentary. Is that the one that's written in Rashi script? The Ramaz and Rashi script, right? Okay, so you can definitely tell the difference. And he there's times where he won't comment because obviously he agrees with what Kara had written, but you'll see him in a lot of throughout the show. His mother was the daughter, and his father was Rabbi Abraham Meisel, who was a Ramaz son-in-law. They're sort of like all interrelated. A lot of these great Rabbanim. Rabbi Abraham Meisel was a wealthy scholar, author of a commentary on the Torah. Rav Yitzchak, that's Rav Moshe's father, was entrusted with the privilege of editing his work, which unfortunately never got published. And he was also a scholar, coming from a very prestigious rabbinic family. Rabbi Moshe's younger brother, his name is Rabbi Shimon Wolf, was a lay leader in the Vilna community, and the Shach's father-in-law. Right, that's the one helped to support him. Rabbi Moshe himself became the son of the illustrious Talmud commentator Mar Shach. It's hard to remember all the names, but you can see them repeated over and over. At a certain point, hopefully, it's in. You won't remember who these people are. In his youth, Rav Moshe was the rabbi of Lublin, Poland, and later the bishop community of Lublin. There's no comparison. But when you learn about the Chachmei Lublin, you're talking more like 19th century. Okay? At this point, they're really not referred to as that. Rabbi Moshe wrote the Mahadura on the Talmud, and it came out in Lublin 1670, containing additional chidushim by his father-in-law together with his own writings. The chidushim on the Agadah, right, that's the story part. I love that one. They're all by Rav Moshe, but those on the halachic parts of the Talmud are by him and his father-in-law. The distinction between the two scholars has been lost in the today. I think that at some point he would have given the freedom to, well, my father-in-law said such and such, but somehow that got lost over time. So you can't tell who said what. Unfortunately, some of Rav Moshe's condition were lost during his various wanderings as a result of the Pesach uprising, and some of the Mahashas were also lost at that time. So never, you see what an upheaval those. I would say that more southern, maybe eastern Poland, they are the ones who suffered the most with the Khmelnytsky uprisings of 1648-49. But the Jews of Vilna, Lithuania, they will be affected in 1654, when they turned their attention to the north, attack the communities there. Okay, now I'm going to turn to another person. His name there, I'm not quite sure where that all came from. Rav Moshe's father, as well as his grandfather, had been scribes, Sofer, in Prague. Naphtali's father, he's called Rav Moshe ben Naphtali, and his father was also a student of Rabbi Yehoshua Falk HaKohen in London. As a proofreader for the Jewish printing establishment in Lublin, Rav Naphtali Hirsch added many rulings found in the margin of his mentor's copy of the Shulchan Aruch. So, probably had handwritten, and then when he comes to publishing it, he included them. He added these to the edition of the 1596, 97. That possibly born. But this is talking about the father. Okay. No copies of this edition are in existence today. Ramosha's sister was the mother of Rav David Lida. We'll come to him. Rabbi of many communities in Poland and Lithuania, and later in Amsterdam. Actually, very interesting story about him. And the author of many published works. Okay. One of the pillars of the learned Vilna community. Rav Moshe devoted many years. But if you study something, you don't rely on it. I mean, it will point to obviously have these like photographic memories and could recall where something was mentioned. But again, their entire lives devoted to studying this. Okay, right. He had a most extensive private library, and again, because it's very expensive, even the printing around, it's so expensive to buy books, the average person could not afford it. In 1655, again, because we're talking about Lithuania, when the Cossacks entered Vilna, he was forced to flee his beloved town along with the other Jewish. They basically all fled. I mean, obviously, they'll go back, actually, but at that time, in 1655, and then soon after, that's when the Swedes invaded. The Swedes to the north were coming down from the north. Rav Moshe arrived in Amsterdam, where he was very favorably received by the community. The Sephardic Rav them at that time, so I recognize his name, Shalom, Rav Shaul Martera and Rav Yitzchak Seka, greatly respected him. Amsterdam ended up, the first, was the Spanish Portuguese Jews who went there and established themselves, and the show is called the Ethiopa. Were they not? And then the Ashkenazim, came in. So it was probably half and half communities. But there was a very, very large Spanish Portuguese population. He wrote his very famous work. It's called Be'er HaGolah. I don't know. And Amsterdam, 1662 to 66. This work is a very accurate work where the sources of the Shulchan Aruch was blocked, and that's why it's so important, because that was the criticism of the Rambam and the criticism of Rabbi Yosef Karo when he wrote his Shulchan Aruch, that they never put down the sources. Now, where did they come to the determination such and such is the halacha? But they didn't say, well, what are they basing it on? So later people went through and they wrote what it has been published in almost every edition of the Shulchan Aruch ever since. Rabbi Moshe also wrote a treatise on the rules to be followed in the rite. And I can see that's really important. You can't just decide, well, I'm going to interpret the whole, and this is what it's locked in on. You have to. I don't do it, of course, so I don't know 100% what they are. I mean, I know even my sons who are rough one, and when they come to something that's very tricky, they'll actually go, how to deal with certain situations. But all right. And additions and revisions to his, famous works of David. But none of these works were. And I don't know, so maybe there were some manuscripts floating around, of it, but it was never published. In spite of the great respect Rav Moshe enjoyed in Amsterdam, he longed to return to Vilna and succeeded in doing so before his death. The Vilna Gaon was a descendant of Rav Moshe. I just going to tell you how it's as his paternal grandfather was the son-in-law of the son of Rav Moshe. Right, but they're all right. We're all related. Descend. I know my Zeta had once made, a family tree, and a little convoluted, but the how that goes like through the mother's side, not like son to grandson, type of descendant. And the Villadon's own work on the Shulchan also refers to antecedent Sefer in almost every entry. Okay, so we finished this packet. Now let's do this last that we have. Okay, and let's start with Rabbi Ira. I don't know who we called him our shot. Oh, I expect to make Rabbanim. I know those are the things to remember, right? All right. So this Marashak is years are 1614 to 1676. Rabbi Aaron was most likely a native of Israel. Okay. His name Adonova is based on a Lithuanian town of Finn, which is very near Vilna. I wouldn't know. And was his family name. So maybe the family originally came from this Haydn, that's on the. As a young man, he married a daughter of one of the local Sayan. He then studied under Rabbi Yaakov and his Rabbi Yoshua. You'll see several of them are disciples of Krakow. He also served in the basin of Vilna together with the Shach and Rab Abraham Hakol. Right? During the Cossack invasion of Vilna in 1655, he fled to Lublin. There he had the misfortune to be overtaken by the Cossack invasion of the city, and in the ensuing invasion, his two daughters. His son, Rav Hirsch, narrowly escaped death. Rav Avraham Shmuel himself was wounded, and the family fled to Austria. And Austria, Rav Aaron, is that 1655? So let's say, I guess you're 1656. In 1670, they're all going to be expelled from Austria. And Austria, Rav Aaron served as a battle of the small town. Afterwards, he served successfully in the Babbage first, because I think it became a pretty major Germany, Nikolsburg, that's Moravia, that's what we would think of as Eastern Czechoslovakia. Glogau, German, and Russia. I don't know, this is Poland. We could look at our maps, I guess, to find this place. He then returned to Germany to serve as Rabbi of Frankfurt am Main. But he soon answered the call of his heart was right? To serve as Rav in his native country. After 1671, remember, 76, he was elected to Poland's most prestigious cabinet of those days, that of the capital, Krakow. And there he remained till the end of his life. It's interesting. So the very, very famous yeshivas are in Poland, not so much Lithuania. But boy, when we come to the 19th century, those yeshivas in Lithuania, I think, down. In Austria, I talked about that. Okay, paragraph. Rav Aaron Shmuel had a strong independent character. Quite a number of these Rav things to have. Right? And he looked with disdain at the prevailing trend to accept without reservations the opinions of such contemporary Shulchan Aruch commentators as the Shach and the Son. And sometimes can't previous people. Now he's coming and he is criticizing what they wrote. He felt that instead of relying on the works of the Achronim, right, all the Rabbanim, starting from one should concentrate on the writings of earlier poets and the sages of the time. Always have to go to the source, right? Then work. He wrote, I like this quote. The Achronim confuse one's logic and memory. Study instead the four Torah and the basic concepts. But actually, they're actually Achronim, but they're earlier part, Rav Aaron Shmuel wrote and published Birkat HaZeva, came out in Amsterdam, 1669. Seduction and emendation to the difficult and little studied, the more Seder Kudshim, right? He also wrote Seduction on related texts in the Rambam. This work is considered to be one of the most important works in this field and is often quoted by the Magen Avraham. Come to next. It was later reprinted by the Chafetz Chaim and his drive to rekindle interest in the study of kosher. That brings us into the 20th century. Rav Aaron led numerous well-known disciples. The Hirsch, who was the author of the popular devotional and ethical classic, around 1705. Mashach's son-in-law was Rav Nachum HaKohen, the Shach's brother. I thought you can see that they're all sort of interrelated. And a later decent, I don't learn very much about the why. Let's get credit to them. They're great things on their shoulders. And a later descendant, Rav Gedalia Moshe, was the author of Cheved Moshe, which is a commentary on the Shulchan Orach Chaim, came out in Perth, Germany, 1769. And now I learned another individual, not perhaps as well known, but everyone makes a comment. Okay, his name is Rabbi Ephraim. He lived from 1660 to 1678. Rabbi Ephraim was the grandson of Rabbi Ephraim Fishel, ben Moshe Yehuda, the first rabbi of the Ashkenazi community in Jerusalem. It's interesting because basically, mostly they were Spartans. You know, they were coming from, well, was part of the Ottoman Empire. They were Jews who had fled to Spain and found refuge either to Greece or Turkey, and then eventually they come to Arab. But now Ashkenazim are also coming back. Some believe that this grandfather had previously been the rabbi of Paris, plus other European communities, and was a son-in-law of the Mahar Uriah. To try to keep them all. What I'm going to do over the summer is make, that, well, I'm going to send it to you. That I'll list all the very great one by century, and country by country. So I thought that was very helpful when we did the Rishonim. Thank you. Rav Avraham was a disciple of Rav Moshe, that tells us okay. Another great Rav. He was appointed as Dayan in Vilna in 1636, and he served in 1630. He's 20 years old, and he served in that capacity for almost 20 years. During the Cossack invasion of Vilna in 1655, as the final place in Malka, where he served as rabbi of Stitch and Lee Brody. I guess Rabbi Brody. Maybe it must be based on this town. After 6 years of tranquility, Rabbi moved on because of military strife in the region. He settled first in Prague and then in Vienna. Finally, in 1666, he was appointed rabbi of Ofen, which I found out that's Budapest, that was what its name was in early years, was called Ofen. Interesting. One of the most prominent communities in Hungary, which was then under Ottoman rule. So that's why you'll find Jews in Hungary, Bulgaria, in Yugoslavia, but they are Spartan because all that whole area was ruled over by the Ottomans. Rabbi Ephraim engaged in widespread halachic correspondence, which reached as far as Turkey and Jerusalem, the Shiloh, both going back and forth. Shiloh. My father talking more like that. Even Rabbi Moshe Galant and Rabbi Moshe Ibn Chabib, who's Israel Rabbanim, saw his opinion on at the end of his life, he was found the chief rabbi of the Ashkenazi community of Jerusalem, which his grandfather had previously held. He accepted the offer, but unfortunately he died before being able to make the trip. Okay, this morning, now talk a little bit about that. Rabbi Ephraim authored a work of response called Sha'ar Ephraim. It was actually Shiloh Sha'ar. Okay, published Sulzbach. That actually sounds like Austria, doesn't it? 1729. It might be Germany. Who knows where it's just have to look it up. Among his pupils was his son, Rav Aryeh Yehuda Leib, who published his father's work, and his grandson, Rav Tzvi Ashkenazi, the Chacham Tzvi. In the year 1678, raging on Budapest, and claimed the life of Rav Aryeh's older brother, Rav Yahu. Okay, now we're talking about a Rob Ephraim. His son is Rob Aryeh. So there was an older brother, his name was Rob Shitziyahu, who dies during the 7 days mourning. The younger son was Rob, same person as Rob. Okay, was also infected with a plague. So now, Rob Ephraim is now the older son, and now the younger son is also. Upon hearing of this, Rav Ephraim enveloped himself in his palace and prayed that his own life be taken instead of his young son. Immediately, the great sage's prayer was answered. The son became well, and the father took him and died shortly thereafter. Just before his death, Rav Ephraim told his son and joined him to edit and publish his two works, his responses him, and a book on Torah. Machaneh. Rabbi Yehuda Leib eventually settled in Yerushalayim in 1685. There he compiled and edited his father's work, which he printed along with some of his own notes and responsa. While on a trip to Europe, he had this work published. Machaneh Ephraim, however, was never published. Okay, so we concluded him. Now we're going to say a little bit about this next individual. Okay, so this is it. His name is Rav Moshe. I've seen somebody say he's called Rav Moshe Lloyd. Then Avraham Migesa. Yeah, what's from Migesa could be. It's also written with a small G, whatever. So he was born 16C, like circa. We don't know, around the year 1645, and he dies in 1681. That lived so long. And he was born in Grodno. And Grodno has two names. I guess in earlier days, it was called Horodna. And then at some point, more like into the 19th century, it was called Grodno. But it was Horodna, the earlier century. Rabbi Moshe was the grandson and disciple of Rabbi Yehoshua Heschel, right? Already? Of Krakow. He raised in his grandfather's house. Now you might ask, why was he with his grandfather? His father, Rabbi Abraham, was martyred as a result of religious persecution. So it doesn't say it's because of those Gezerot Tachlotai, the Cossack uprising 1648. But obviously there was a lot of turmoil. Did not die as a result of that. Rabbi Moshe always refers to him as Ha-Hadosh, a moniker reserved for martyrs. Rabbi Moshe lived his early years in Europe, where he instructed young men in Torah learning. Later, he became the rabbi of Horodna, and in 1681, he was invited to become a rabbi in Krakow. But for some reason, kind of, so he's going to end up, in Horodna, and he was actually the base. He was head of the Jewish court. Rabbi Moshe composed Tiferet LaMoshe, an important work on the Shulchan Aruch Yored, which came out in Delaware in 1776. So it took a while to be published. Declaring from Great Britain here in the U.S. The sages of later generations cite this work extensively, especially Rabbi Akiva Eiger, and if you've heard of him, held in great esteem. He's a little bit to the right, but but he is a great scholar. The noted Gaon Rabbi Fetzel Landau of Prague, in his introduction to this work, called Rabbi Moshe Gaon among Gaonim, and states that he was unique in his generation. Rabbi Moshe also wrote a work, but this was never. In addition, his notes on the Talmud can be found in the Vilna edition of the Gemara, 1880. So, the Gemara, the whole Talmud went through various editions in different countries. Probably the first one is in Italy, but the one that is now used today in Shiva, is the one from Vilna. All right, that's considered the most important. And you see, it came out in the year 1880. Magen Avraham. So, can we go like 5 minutes over, or is it okay with you guys? Okay. So this is what his real name. Rabbi Ad, sometimes it's Adel, Gambiner. And again, he's on the Lona, born 1634, he died in 1682. it's rare that you find somebody who lives well even into their 70s or their 80s. You know, they all seem to. Well, look, they lived through very hard times. I mean, the upheaval, moving place to place, losing family members. I mean, it was not an easy time period. Turbulent times, Margaret Abraham's youth, during which his father was murdered as a Cossack mob in Pennsylvania, 1655. Just remember, 1654 when that there was that treaty signed between Khmelnytsky and at that point, well, he's not considered the czar yet, but he's the king of Muscovy, the area around Moscow. He thereupon left Tambin, right, the town, and settled in Lisa, where he studied under his relative Rabbi Yaakov Yisroel Tambiner. After completing studies, Rabbi Abraham moved to the city of Kalish. I knew a girl when I was in high school named Vivian Kalish. She came from, I think, Elizabeth. So obviously, that name is also based on a town, going back, numerous generations. In terms of, I think it was after the 19th century, maybe this was under the Czar's history, that you had to have a last name. You couldn't just so you made it a real last name. So sometimes, like on my mother's side, the last name is Eisenberg. Eisen means iron. So it must have been a foundry, maybe in the area. Berg means city. And my other name is Silver. I'm not sure, unless somebody at one point dealt in precious stone, silver. Yeah, I have no idea. Right. Okay. He was in Tikais and became there a teacher of young children. In 1660, the Shah, who was visiting him on the peaceful marriage of his son to the daughter of one of the main leaders of the community. Then you married them to a great son, you married them to son of a rich held a Talmudic discourse. I don't know many people came, Russia. He raised a difficult problem which none of the great scholars of Polish could answer. One of Abraham's young students, remember, he was a young, related the problem to his sister, who immediately advanced a satisfactory reply. When this was reported to the Shah, he was greatly impressed with the clarity of Abraham's thinking. The two Rabbanim met and discussed additional Talmudic problems from any area. They probably, up until now, people are just counting him. Oh, he's a teacher, little chocolate, Now that the great Shah is recognizing his brilliance, he's going to be held in. The scholars in Kalish were suitably impressed with the young Rav, and the rabbi of the town, Dr. Shapiro, son of Rabbi Dr. Shapiro, appointed Rav Abraham as a Morat Tzedek. He was then responsible for rendering halachic rulings on matters relating to daily life. Again, that Shulchan Aruch, Orach Chaim, and Yoreh De'ah. Later, he came to fill the post of Dayan. Rabbi Abraham is most known for his monumental came out in 1692, and the entire section of Orach Chaim. You're not going to find him Magen Abraham in the Yoreh De'ah, right? But you will find him, right, in the Orach Chaim. Completed in 1971, and originally titled Mary's. I wonder if she's from Baltimore. Kind of, I have no idea. Rabbi, I should call them up. How did you choose that name? Rabbi Abraham decided to publish it as early as 1673. He sent the manuscript, this is sad. He sent the manuscript to Amsterdam together with his brother, who unfortunately soon passed away. The manuscript was returned to Rabbi who further redacted, you go over fine tuning, and made some further revisions over the next 10 years. That's why after he saw it for a second time, he said, let's change some things here. When the Magen Avraham this work together with the top, not the shop, but the top, right? It's a commentary, Magen David became the standard Orach Chaim commentary. So just like we showed you in Yoreh De'ah, it's the Shach of the Taz. So if you open up the Orach Chaim, you were there, you will then see, you won't see the Shach there, but you'll see the Taz and the Magen. The Vilna Gaon himself. Okay, the two commentaries were printed together under the joint title Maginei Eretz. The Vilna Gaon himself refers to the top and the Magen Avraham in virtually every paragraph with his own shulchan or commentary. Rabbi Avraham was an eminent Kabbalist. We mentioned this before. Many of them, not the most recent things we're learning about, but certainly earlier in that 17th century, so many of these Rabbanim did study Kabbalah. He first views it over especially the Arabia, view on Kabbalah became like preeminent Kabbalah of Eastern Europe. And it is very powerful position. In most cases, the rulings of Magen Avraham are considered authoritative against the opinion of others. Because of its first nice short, brief language and great profundity, brilliance, many commentaries have been written upon the Magen Avraham. Rabbi Avraham also came on Zayat Radna, came on Bessa, right? Rabbi Eliyahu, in any case, at 1704, a short commentary on the Midrash, Al-Shimoni. And sometimes even when you're studying everything not everything, not, you'll see it's a Midrash. It's one of the latest Midrashim that came out. It's like 8th century, and so he's writing a commentary on this Yalkut Shimoni. The excerpts from it were printed in the margin of the Yalkut edition, published in Warsaw in 1878. It is considered today to be the third edition. Rabbi Avraham also wrote Shemin Stone, in Bessa, 1504, a series of discourses on the Torah until the partial Torah. So I didn't get all the way through, just wrote it on the first partial of the edition. So what? I think to keep these so low. We could definitely do these other two men when we come back in this session next year. Because I have several things, but I don't want to get to them like Magen Avraham just because he's so famous. He's quoted so frequently. Is a really a truly brilliant. So you remember from all of this, Magen Avraham, he goes through this shulchan aura. So we do this, and over the summer, I'm going to work on making a chart, right? What I do is I put it on a cell. I know. I get to do the way I know how, and then you transfer. Because I just know how to do it great, and she puts it together. Of course. But we'll be for next year. Let me just turn this off. Okay, and